A group of Republican lawmakers want new investigations of the FBI's treatment of the Hillary Clinton email scandal. They also want a closer look at the Uranium One case and how the Justice Department handled the early days of the Russia probe. Joining us now from Capitol Hill are Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz and Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. Congressman Gaetz, you all were on the floor today. What are you calling for?
Well, we have seen a double standard of bias that benefits Hillary Clinton and works against President Trump. Hillary Clinton was essentially investigated by her own fan club, and we're finding out more and more every day, Brett, that Bob Mueller's team was essentially selected when he was fishing in the Never Trump aquarium. Time and again, it's hard to win when you've got the other team, when you've got the referees wearing the jersey of the other team, and here when you've got Mr. Orr's wife, Nellie Orr, actually getting paid by the Fusion GPS company that put together this fake dossier, it really calls into question the integrity of the investigation.
Congressman Jordan, are you calling for a special counsel to investigate the special counsel?
Yep. Well, we called for a second special counsel, Brett, 4.5 months ago. It needs to happen. With each day, as we learn more and more, it just reinforces this idea that you had the Comey FBI and the Obama Justice Department coordinating with the Clinton campaign to go after President Trump. I mean, when you think about what we learned in the last several weeks, the dossier paid for by the Clinton campaign, the Democrat National Committee, who then paid the law firm, who then paid Fusion GPS, who paid Christopher Steele, who paid Russians to put together this fake dossier that we believe was the basis for securing warrants at the FISA court to spy on Americans. That all took place. That's what we got to find out about. That's what we got to get answers to. That's why we've called for a second special counsel.
You know, I asked your colleague, Trey Gowdy, the head of the Oversight Committee, about the call for a special counsel on these grounds. Here's what he said to me.
These are Trump people. So special counsel just means we either don't think you can do your job, and the women and men that we paid millions of dollars to run the DOJ, so we're going to find somebody who's not part of DOJ and give them a bunch of FBI agents. And oh, by the way, the FBI's got some issues right now. Special counsel is not a panacea. What we need is a serious investigation. Who does it is immaterial to me.
Yeah,
Congressman Gaetz.
Well, look, I mean, I think that Trey Gowdy's got a lot of affection for the Department of Justice and the FBI. Our problem is that the senior officials at those agencies, people who are right below the director and the attorney general, are actually being implicated for bias. I mean, how can we allow the Department of Justice to conduct this investigation when the guy who was the head of counterintelligence had his wife moonlighting for the Fusion GPS company that was digging up fake dirt on the president to discredit him both before and after the election? We have to have clean eyes. We have to have an outcome we can rely on, and currently with the FBI and the Department of Justice, there's far too much bias, far too much evidence of coordination with President Trump's enemies, and we can't trust them.
Is this a problem for Attorney General Sessions, Congressman Jordan? Is he at fault here?
He doesn't know where his recusal starts and stops. That was evident from Matt's questioning 4 weeks ago when he sat in front of the committee. No one likes special counsels, but when the Attorney General doesn't know where his recusal begins and ends, and Robert Mueller is inherently compromised on the Uranium One issue, and the number four, one of the top guys at the Justice Department, Bruce Orr, is meeting with Glenn Simpson and Christopher Steele, the guy who wrote and paid for the dossier, and oh, by the way, his wife is employed by him. You don't think there's a conflict there? We don't like special counsels either, but there is no other way to get to the truth for the American people. That's why we called for it 4.5 months ago, and it needs to happen.
When you hear Congressman Schiff, who's ranking member of the House Intel Committee, say there may not be specific evidence of collusion, but there's circumstantial evidence, and he lays out how he laid it out this weekend, what do you say to that?
I would say that there's a heck of a lot of evidence of collusion between the Democrats and Russia. Just like Mr. Jordan just said, you've got circumstances where the very wife of a senior official at the Department of Justice was getting paid by the people who were getting paid by the Democratic Party to go and pay Russians to tell lies about the president. That is de facto collusion, Brett. So I think there's a heck of a lot more circumstantial evidence. There's real evidence. The question is whether or not this entire narrative about President Trump and Russia was made up to cover up the collusion between Democrats and Russia, and that's what the evidence seems to be pointing to more and more, and it's why we're asking the questions. Look, we don't have all the answers yet. That's one of the reasons why we're bringing in Mr. Rosenstein tomorrow to the Judiciary Committee, and we hope he'll actually give us answers, because the Attorney General and the FBI Director, they largely didn't give us answers. They don't think the American people deserve to know whether their taxpayer money was used to go and discredit the sitting President of the United States. I think the American people do deserve to know, and that's why we're pressing on with our investigation.
Congressman Jordan?
Well, I mean, look, Matt's exactly right. Jeff Sessions wouldn't answer our questions. Christopher Wray wouldn't answer our questions. They won't give us the documents. Hopefully, Mr. Rosenstein will be better tomorrow. We'll see. But we're going to press him just as hard as we did the former witnesses in front of the Judiciary. Remember, this is the Judiciary Committee. The committee with primary responsibility, oversight responsibility of the Justice Department, and they won't give us the information we need. They won't answer the questions when they come. So if that's the case, I don't know any other remedy logically that you can get to than a second special counsel.
There are some conservatives in talk radio and other places who are saying that all of the calls for President Trump to step down for past sexual misconduct allegations are coming because this Russia probe is not going where they think it's going to go. Do you believe that? And what do you think of today's interchange with Senator Gillibrand?
Well, I think that the left has just gone crazy over the fact that Donald Trump is the duly elected President of the United States, and they will do absolutely anything to try to distract us from the important work we're doing to improve quality of life for the American people, to improve our economy, our regulatory environment. And so we've got to make sure that the president's time in office is not clouded by these fake allegations that have been ginned up by people who bring a tremendous amount of bias against him. I mean, Brett, don't forget, Andrew Weissman, the #2 guy in the Mueller probe, was at Hillary Clinton's victory party. He was praising Sally Yates when she directly defied an order from the president. And I just think you're going to continue to hear from the left all of these different excuses and circumstances why Donald Trump shouldn't be president. The reality is he is our president, and we should be working together to improve life for the Americans that we serve.
Congressman Gates and Jordan, we appreciate your time. We promise you we're going to cover all elements of these investigations. Thanks a lot.
A new revelation has prompted President Trump's legal team to call for a second special counsel to investigate the investigators. This after we have learned that demoted Justice Department official Bruce Orr had even closer ties than previously known to Fusion GPS. That's the firm behind the anti-Trump dossier. We now know that Orr's wife worked for Fusion GPS during the election. Well, that's as close as you get. Orr was demoted last week after it was revealed that he concealed meetings he had with the men behind that dossier. Now that Trump's legal team knows who Orr's wife worked for, they say there needs to be an investigation. Robert Driscoll is a former Justice Department official who served as Deputy Assistant Attorney General under President George W. Bush. And you say, Robert, this is a big deal. Why?
Well, I mean, I think this is pretty clearly a conflict of interest to the extent Mr. Orr was working on matters related to Trump and the dossier. I mean, this is not a run-of-the-mill conflict of interest. I mean, in Washington all the time, people have spouses that might work at a big law firm that has some involvement in a case. But those are huge institutions that don't necessarily have a conflict in all cases, even though there might be a bad appearance. I mean, here, Fusion is, from my understanding, a 10-person operation, maybe at most. And to have a senior DOJ official spouse working there and then have that same DOJ official involved with some of the meetings really doesn't look good. I mean, I have a lot of faith in the department as an institution, but this is really a bad look for the department and something that should have been avoided.
Yeah, when you talk about how small that operation is, it's quite possible that other people on the team at GPS would have known about this connection between the DOJ and his wife working at the company. So what does it look like when you bust open conflict of interest like this? Like, what is the accountability for this? What should it be?
Well, I mean, there's conflict of interest criminal statutes, and I don't think we know enough to know whether any of those apply. There could be, an obligation to recuse. But really, in some sense, the damage has been done because, the problem is the credibility of whatever work Mr. Orr did will now be thrown into question by people who don't like how it came out. I mean, this is why you want to avoid these situations. It's not just that you're worried someone's going to do something for the wrong reasons. It's that you've tainted to some extent, you've tainted whatever he touched, having to do with this dossier. Whether or not it's true or valid or not, you look at it and it just doesn't seem right.
Well, and maybe even wider than that. I mean, I don't know what other cases he worked on, but my goodness, this goes to judgment, doesn't it? I mean, we all know what a conflict of interest looks like, and I would think for him, he would especially know. I want to talk about the special counsel situation, though.
Right.
Not everybody's on board with that. Here's Congressman Trey Gowdy on the issue.
I'm in a small universe of people that doesn't think we need one. I got friends on the other side, but the folks running the Department of Justice now aren't the ones who ran it under President Obama. These are Trump people. So special counsel just means we either don't think you can do your job, and the women and men that we pay millions of dollars to run the DOJ, so we're going to find somebody who's not part of DOJ and give them a bunch of FBI agents. And oh, by the way, the FBI's got some issues right now.
So that's kind of a fresh perspective here, because these are people who've come into place since the president took office, and wouldn't you want to give them a chance, as I understand the congressman to be saying, to do their job? Or do you put in a special counsel? Your thoughts?
I disagree with the notion of putting in a special counsel. I would agree with Congressman Gowdy. I mean, I think that because of the political ramifications, people want a special counsel, mainly for political reasons, because then there's a sense of equivalency about there being a special counsel on both sides. But the congressman is right in that really the only reason you should have a special counsel is if the DOJ can't do the job in that particular case. And in this case, I mean, the Inspector General of DOJ could look into this. Public integrity at DOJ could look into this. And there's not the same kind of conflict. It's not as though the top levels of this Justice Department, the political appointees, are being investigated and can't be trusted to do a good job. So in my mind, I would disagree with the appointment of special counsel, which doesn't mean I don't think the matter's serious and shouldn't be investigated. To the contrary, I think it should be. But I think that, you know, the congressman is right. You're paying people a lot of money to do this kind of stuff. There are whole units set up to do these kind of investigations. Let's let them do the work and see. And any notion that, I mean, the Justice Department now under Trump, there should not be a huge risk that they're protecting people from the prior administration.
Robert Driscoll, you used to work there, former DOJ official. We appreciate your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you, Harris.
Let it go.